What is your favorite thing about recruiting?
I really like the part of the process in discovery where we're really working alongside of our clients to understand what they genuinely need, which is not just a list of competencies and skills. It's really about envisioning what the human who does that role can be. And that really allows us to look at the candidate as a full human and not just grading them down a checklist.
Hello, everyone out there, and welcome to episode 1 of season 6 of Nonprofit on the Rocks. I'm your host and co-founder of Envision Consulting, Matt Kamen. We have been off the air for about a year retooling and are so excited about what's happening this season. If this is your first time tuning in, our show is designed for nonprofit leaders, board members, change makers, anyone out there who really cares about nonprofits and what we do. Each episode will explore expert perspectives, practical strategies, and real-world stories that help nonprofits not only tackle today's challenges, but also build a stronger foundation for lasting impact in the future. Today, I'm really excited because I am joined by my friend and fellow recruiter and sometimes competitor, Tom O'Connor, who is the founder of TOC Arts Partners in New York. I do think that this is a really witty conversation and also an honest conversation about the world right now of nonprofit recruiting and looking for a job. In this episode, we're going to talk a lot about the human side of hiring, about the art of losing gracefully, and the realities of the current job market, because it is so unpredictable right now, and I feel like it changes every minute. You're going to get great advice for job seekers, tips for how you as a nonprofit leader can stand out, and then a few confessions about our own favorite candidates and what it feels like to come in second again and again and again for job interviews, to hang in there because you will get that job. So I'm really excited to share this interview, and let's dive in. Well, hello, my friend Tom O'Connor. How are you doing this evening?
I'm great. It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to be with you too in our new format. So as I was telling you and our one listener out there, this is a brand new format for me. And so you're the guinea pig, as you said, but I may fail. So I'm going to ask you for a grade at the end of this show, if you don't mind.
I'll be grading you anyway, so I'm happy to share with the class.
No, I know. And for everybody else who, for the 3 people out there who are listening to our show, Tom and I play in the same space. So we are both recruiters. We, every once in a while, go up against each other. I don't really think very often. I will say off air that, of course, I never lose to you. And of course, on air, you always beat me. I think that's fair. I still call it Nonprofit on the Rocks, and I still do have a cocktail. Now, I know you're not having a cocktail, so what are you drinking with me today?
I'm having an almond milk latte. I'm happy to say that I do not drink, but I make just as many bad decisions anyways. Well, it's all fine.
Well, cheers to you. It is noon out here, but I'm still doing it. So just to make sure that everybody knows who you are, you just rebranded, but you started TOC Arts Partners. Can you tell us a little bit about you and your background and how you got into recruiting?
Yes. So yes, as of just a few weeks ago, we are TOC Arts Partners, founded as Tom O'Connor Consulting Group. But we are now moving to TOC Arts Partners. We are a search and strategy firm for the arts and culture space exclusively. We've been in existence for about 10 years, and our team is drawn from entirely arts professionals and folks who are seasoned arts executives. But as far as the backstory of my background and how our firm started, I spent my life largely in the theater, but working some other arts institutions for this. But I primarily came up as a marketer. And so I worked in marketing for Broadway nonprofit theaters. Most recently, I was the head of marketing and audience development for Roundabout Theater Company in New York, the largest nonprofit theater in New York and in the country, really. But all that to say, I work with arts organizations across all genres. My background, being in marketing, is relevant in the sense that we, as a founding focus, we focused on marketing both on the search and strategy front in terms of marketing and audience strategies, branding, all those kinds of things alongside our recruiting and executive search practice. Over the years, as we've gotten more seasoned in our methodologies and as we've expanded the team with more subject matter experts, we've branched into many other areas, whether that's fundraising, true executive roles. We've even been dipping our toes into board recruitment, all sorts of different things in recent times. But we have really stayed in the arts and culture lane. And as far as the strategy work goes, that has also expanded out to be much more about higher level organizational strategy, change management, organizational assessments, structural consultations, all those kinds of things. But the fact is, I got off topic, which will happen again, so be warned. But to say my background being in marketing was germane to some of what we were doing in the beginning, and it is still germane now. But I think the biggest thing that drew me into executive search was that I had led a pretty large team in a nonprofit theater and was quite comfortable with hiring. I actually really enjoyed it. And so I really started it very informally, and only over time, over the past decade, as I've gotten more into the executive search world and developed stronger bonds to that field and have sought professional development for myself and my team, have I sort of plugged in more to best practices. But I started in a very homegrown way. I never worked in executive search before I started my firm. And in some ways, I think that's made me more attuned to the needs of the organizations and less beholden to the customs of executive search. And in some ways, I've needed to really advance my own knowledge in terms of equitable process, in terms of facilitation around executive placement, things like that. But we are very, very pleased with the team we have and the success we were able to deliver for our clients. And it's a pleasure to do the work.
Cool. I did not know all of that about your background, so thank you for all of that. It's interesting. We also got into recruiting with zero experience in recruiting. And I actually agree with you. I think that actually makes us better than other recruiters. So just out of curiosity, and then there's so many things that I want to talk about in a short amount of time. What is your favorite thing about recruiting?
I really like the part of the process in discovery where we're really working alongside of our clients to understand what they genuinely need, which is not just a list of competencies and skills and all those things. It includes those things, but it is not just those things. It's really about kind of envisioning what the human who does that role can be. And then that really allows us to look at the candidate as a full human and not just look at them as like grading them down a checklist. I have a social work background in addition to my arts admin background. So I really like the whole human approach to our work to really help people envision the full, space that person could occupy. And that creates a better space for candidates to try to step into. So I just really like the humanness of it. But I also am such a nerd that I also really like the technicalities of it. But I would say that's where I zoom in. I really subscribe to the idea that 100% of people who speak in absolutes are assholes. And so I really try not to look at processes that way in terms of thinking like somebody has to be a certain way. And I think it's really good to leave space for that exploration. And I enjoy doing that.
No, I fully agree. I also come from actually being at a nonprofit and running a nonprofit, and I miss the impact that we used to have. I miss seeing work that we did with clients. And I also really miss fundraising because I will tell you that's probably one thing that I'm really good at. And so being able to place really good people and good humans in roles still makes me feel like I'm making an impact, even if I'm not. So,
well, not to turn it into your therapy session, but you are making an impact. And that's the thing that I both tell myself, but also really genuinely love to see now, because I watch somebody who like lights up their role and lights up the people they work with. And I go, yeah, we helped them do that. And that's extremely fulfilling. So anyway.
Yeah, it is. It is when you and I have my favorites, by the way. Like, of course, we all have our favorites, right? But I have my favorites, and the problem is they know who they are. So I'm not very.
Whoever's listening to this, you're the favorites.
I mean, it's the three people who are listening to this.
Yeah, well, I'm here, so now you've got four.
So why I wanted to get this out so much, and I will say you were the only person I reached out to do this. So that's a really big deal, but also I know I'm going to piss off a lot of our friends. But you were it. You were the only person I reached out to. So
any of them that are listening, they are also our favorites.
Oh, please tell them they're not listening. But they're just going to see our pictures and I'm like, he picked him? So yeah, it's going to be fun. But I want to talk about the state of the market and kind of what's happening and what folks should be kind of preparing for, even thinking about. And I'm personally very confused. I have no idea what's going on. At the beginning of the year, we had a ton of nonprofits reach out to us to do searches. Somewhere second quarter, everything stopped. We had nobody reaching out to us to do searches. And then at some point over the last 2 months, all of a sudden we got a lot. And so I have no idea what's happening out there in the world. So first, just pulse check. What do you think is happening right now in terms of hiring?
I think coming back to my statement before about looking at the whole human experience of all of this, I mean, I think what we're seeing, we put a quarter in the jar every time we say the word uncertainty for the last 5 years, but I think that's a fancy word for fear. There's a lot of fear in the market right now, and it's on the client side, it's on the candidate side, it's on the sort of board side, it's everywhere. And I see it and I feel it and I understand it, because we don't know what's going to happen with funding. We don't know what's going to happen with what the needs of a leader are going to need to be in the next year or two. I think that there are certain organizations for which advocacy has always been a strong part of their portfolio of what they have to do. But in this day and age, the shape of what that advocacy needs to be is changing before our eyes, as the sort of case for all of these organizations, in our case, arts and culture organizations, in your case, a broader portfolio, but it's changing. And so it's really hard to be what I always refer to as flexible yet sure-footed in these moments, to say we're sort of rooted in what we're doing, but we have to remain flexible, and that's hard. So anyway, all that to say, I can see why it's hard for people to start searches in this moment. I can see why it's hard for candidates to feel like they're putting their best foot forward in this moment, because they don't really know what people are looking for. And so there's just a lot of fear in the system right now. What we try to do is, we're talking to clients either about basically winning their business to be supporting them in this way, or we're talking to candidates, is to try to make clear that there are not as many false choices as they've been led to believe. In terms of, on the candidate side, there is a lot of fear about finding that thing, because a lot of people are looking for work and there's not a lot of movement, really. People can really get it in their head that they have to meet certain criteria for every single job in front of them. And we always try to say, we take time to write these profiles in the way that we do, because they are all very different roles. So don't think that you need to bring the same thing to every single job, for every single mission, for every single board or hiring manager, if it's not an executive level. Really think about where that mission and vision of that organization sits in you, and how does that actually align with the role in a way that you can talk about it in a human way. Because I think when people do get into a fearful place, they forget about those things. But on the sort of client side of it, of organizations and where they are, I think everybody is in a fearful place of making a wrong decision, of getting the timing wrong, of all those kinds of things. And so we see the way that manifests is hesitation on announcements, hesitation on making a decision of a search firm, and also thinking about the perception of their choices. I think that people are rightly just in a place of needing sort of to build their confidence. And that's a big part of what we try to do in the work too, is once they select us or once they're working with us, frankly, from our first conversation, trying to make it clear that we are their thought partner, that we are really here to help them think through all of this, not just to carry out the recruitment process. So my long-winded response.
So if you're a nonprofit CEO right now, executive director, and you've got a director of development role to fill, or whatever it is, a CFO role to fill, why should a nonprofit right now, especially when things are so uncertain, what's the positive? Why should they spend the money on a recruiting firm?
Sure. I mean, if specifically in a sector-specific firm like ours, so I can only answer from that vantage point because I'm not as much of a nonprofit generalist as I perceive you to be, but in the arts and culture space, generally speaking, we can, in many cases, vet candidates in a way that is rooted in the experience of so many other organizations and experiencing so many both successes and challenges and failures across different organizations, and knowing what to look for. We know the folks who are applying to everything. And we know the folks who are just throw themselves at anything that moves. And we love those people too, but there are some folks that give a good interview, but for whatever reason are not quite aligned to a lot of different positions. And we certainly don't want to hold those people back. We want to find the right opportunity for them. We also need to sort of be eyes wide open with our clients to say that we're going to make sure that they are getting somebody who really is interested in that job. And that sometimes can be somebody who's tried for other things. I'm not saying that those things are mutually exclusive, but we have a sense of the market and a sense of people's movement and their interest that is deeper than just looking at the folks who apply to a job. And frankly, in this moment, specifically with development, just to grab onto that, the opportunity of hiring a development person right now is not one that can be filled, generally speaking, by posting a job somewhere and just fielding the candidates. It's sort of a knife fight in a phone booth. It is a hard field to be recruiting in right now. And so it's not the kind of thing that you can just post the job and field the applicants. You do have to be working your network, finding new folks, which we're constantly doing. We have a whole search operations team who's focused on sourcing new candidates and meeting new people and making sure that we are reaching out beyond just the folks we already know. Any internal talent team or HR team or whatever is going to be struggling to do that on top of all of their other duties. So we have a benefit of focus.
Let's say that you're a candidate and you put that person up for a job and they didn't get it. And they really wanted it. They didn't get it. What kind of follow-up do you want from that candidate to make you think, yes, I want to put that person up again for something else?
I want them to receive the feedback and the decision with some grace, which does not mean they need to be happy about it, because that shows how you deal with success and failure in a business. And It's not so simple as to say don't take it personally. I'm not saying that. I think that's a myth. We take things personally, humans. It just happens. But the way that people respond to us shows us a lot about how they deal with rejection and failure. And so, for example, we've had candidates who've gone through a process really well. They didn't get the job. And for whatever reason, they took it really hard and decided that they going to be really nasty toward that organization, or kind of make it sound like they had rejected them in their head before they had been rejected. Those kinds of things, which I understand the human instinct to do that. I really do. But you have to have that pause to stop and say, that's something I should keep to myself. And I think that's something that I would encourage folks. I'm in the same position often. I mean, you and I both compete, not necessarily against each other much, but we compete for business with others a lot. And we don't win everything. And we have to sort of have that moment to say, I'm going to take this hard and over here, but I don't need to let them know that. That's not their business. So that sort of self-regulation, I think, is important. I think the cleanest advice I can just give is have grace, accept the fact that we don't win everything. I know that can sound easy for us to say as the consultants, but trust me, we lose a lot too. And just be ready to go at it again. I mean, this is very much a numbers game. Everything about business is a numbers game. I've had candidates who've been up as a finalist for 3 jobs in a row, and those are the first 3 jobs we had them for. And I keep telling them, I know these haven't gone your way, but that's still amazing. To be a finalist 3 times is amazing. That's deeply unsatisfying, I understand. But from my vantage point, that's a great sign that you're on the right track.
So that's actually really interesting, because that was going to my next question to you. Is there's a candidate I love. Like, I adore him. He's one of my favorite humans, and I have put him up for a job, and for the last 5 times he's come in second. He's come in the bridesmaid, not the bride, and it kills him, and it kills me. And at some point I'm watching him, and I'm watching him lose his confidence when he goes into the next interview, and I'm watching him oversell himself because he just can't help it. So I heard what you just said. It's amazing. You were up for 3 jobs. You got that close. All that's good. But truly, what advice can you give him or other people that you and I love that don't get the job?
Question, because this is our lives every day. And I think if we're doing this work well, we spend just as much time with those folks as we do with the folks that get the job and that we're supporting on an ongoing way in their new position. I think we sort of need to spend time with those folks to help them not overcorrect or overly internalize some of that feedback. But the advice that I would give is going to sound really basic, but you're almost there. Keep going. Because I know candidates who've been up for 7 jobs and then they get the 8th one. And I know that's frustrating to hear, but that's kind of the reality of how it can work, especially right now in a competitive market. And as I mentioned before, there are a lot of folks that are making fear-based decisions or fear-based estimations of what they need to do. That does lead a lot of people to not leave their job right now too. It may make some people change fields or whatever, but it actually makes a lot of people not leave their jobs. And so it's not like there are a million openings. There are certainly plenty. There's not an excessive amount of them. So there are going to be a lot of good candidates up for a lot of jobs. And so the other piece of advice that I try to give often is also not to mistake the decision to go with somebody else as some quantifiable response to you that you are either good or bad. It's not like you went for this and the hiring manager comes back to you and says, I'm sorry, we didn't hire you because you are bad. What I interpret it as, and what I try to convey to candidates, what they're actually saying is there is an alchemy to what we need that is both a set of skills, an energy, a style, a culture. There's just a lot of things going on in that organization. It is not some quantifiable equation to say you have these things or you don't. There's sometimes just a person who is a better fit for that thing. That doesn't mean you are bad. And so we can work on the things that help them present themselves better. And if we are continuing to work with them on other searches, we will absolutely do that. But we need to be able to sort of come up alongside them as a real person and say, these are the things that we observed. And most of the time, it is not oh, well, they thought you were really long-winded, or, oh, they thought you were whatever. Those things do occasionally happen, but it's very rarely that. It's just that they have tough decisions to make. So let's not make it this sort of zero-sum game of you're either good or you're bad. That's what I really do say to people, because it's what I experience with search committees. It's not like they're sitting there just rejecting everyone and then there's one person who didn't get rejected. They're making really complex decisions.
That's actually the one thing that I dislike the most about my job, is sitting in deliberations and you got 5 to however many search committee members there are. They're generally board members. Yeah. And I could come in and I can say 2 + 2 = 4. And all 8 people are going to hear me differently. And it's so frustrating to me, because one will be like, did he say 5? And the other one will be like, did he say 8? And nobody has everything that everybody wants ever. And then me anyway, truly is the most frustrating part of my job. I can see it, but they don't always see it. So you're right. There's never just one thing. I wish they were so much easier.
It's not. It's such a human process, and everybody's part. And we can do our best, and we do our best to make it an equitable process and to minimize the way that bias plays into it. But at the end of the day, these are not AI making these decisions. These are humans. And you cannot root out every single aspect of bias that's in that mix. We go to great lengths to facilitate a process in such a way that that is minimized. But the priorities that you say you have for a role do evolve as you meet people and as you see the possibilities of somebody's tenure. So it's kind of a reality of the process. Like I said, we try to minimize the impact. I mean, all sorts of things in terms of scoring and really objective factors.
Okay, so there are a lot of government cuts, as we all know, a lot of uncertainty in the market, especially when it comes to funding. And we are or not going into recession. I've been thinking we're going into recession for the last 3 years. Hasn't happened yet, waiting. So donors and the amount of donations are going down where it comes to like smaller donations, not the larger donations, but donations are going down. So what advice would you give somebody who is sad? Like they're cool in their job. They hate it, but they're set. The organization's not at risk of closing, not at risk of losing money. It's fine, but they hate their job. To go somewhere that maybe be at risk, may not be a sure thing. What advice would you give that person?
That's a good question. I mean, I can think of so many different scenarios wherein I would respond to that differently, but I would say, I guess I'd want to really unpack what it means by hate your job. I'm getting too really semantic about it, but because I can't begrudge somebody saying like, no, I'm really safe here. I might not love it, but I'm really safe here and it doesn't interfere with my personal life and I'm able to make it work. Like I kind of get that. And there are plenty of times when I talk to candidates who I'm trying to convince to use the jobs and they walk me through why. And I say, and I will keep trying, obviously. I mean, that's part of what we're paid to do is to keep trying. But at some point when you realize that no is really no, you have to sometimes say like, listen, I get it. And by the way, that realness and like talking to people like real people and understanding why they make the decisions they make and showing that you're not just here to be the robot trying to recruit them for things is what makes them answer you, what makes them engage with you. So I'm never going to be that person who's going to just like throw myself against the wall 1,000 times because I'm supposed to. That being said, I think it kind of depends on, I guess, the nature of the uncertainty in the organization you're trying to recruit for. Because for some people, the idea of a turnaround or the idea of seeing opportunities and being able to be the one to tackle them and bring that organization to a better place in coalition with other people there, the board, all those things, that opportunity really lights some people up. If it does not light you up, then it is probably not the job for you in this moment. And I think we should be real about that. I don't know your point of view on this, but we are always of the perspective with our clients that we don't want to spin things. We'll make it palatable in writing perhaps, but I'm going to get on the phone with that person and I'm going to tell them what's really there, because if they're not up for that task, they're not the one for this job. I do not want to surprise anybody. I do not want to sell anybody a bill of goods, because I'm building goodwill, not just with the organization I'm recruiting for, but with the person I have placed there. I'm really committed to that degree of just making sure it's really for them. So I guess my long-winded answer to your question is I may just tell them, keep doing what you're doing. I get it.
Yeah, right. I've been sold a bill of goods personally. The 2 organizations that I did run, the board lied to me, just flat out lied to me about everything. And I took the job and I don't know if I would have if I knew the truth. So yeah, I think if anybody's listening to this and you either get called by a recruiter or the nonprofit, get all the information you possibly can. If you think that they're not telling you the truth or you think that they're holding back on something,
yeah,
I would trust your gut on that one.
Always have the conversation, but keep your antenna up.
Always. Okay. So now I'm going to flip it. What would you tell a nonprofit if they are also a little bit unsure about funding, but they really need this, I'm running a nonprofit. I really need this position, but I'm worried that I'm going to lose funding and maybe I won't be able to keep this person. What do you tell that nonprofit to do?
I think I've worked with a couple of organizations where they have been very clear about the fact that things are uncertain in that moment for a variety of reasons. In our case, it could be an arts nonprofit that is not necessarily just concerned about contributed revenue, but maybe worried about audience patterns and sales and all those kinds of things. There have been many cases where the hiring manager, in this case, it wasn't a CEO role, but a hiring manager did have some real concern in that area. And I really pushed them to say, listen, these are senior folks you're talking to. These are not entry-level folks. Yeah. You need to be able to talk to them in a real way and say, listen, here's the real risk that is in the air here right now. If you take this job, it has to be with that understanding so that you're kind of ready to get in the lifeboat with us in a way. I mean, I don't mean to make it sound more bleak than it really is, but like you need to be willing to kind of get in here and be scrappy and figure out the way forward and bring out that entrepreneurial spirit and to grapple with that. But they really need to say to that person, these are the assurances I can give you and these are the assurances I can't. And I think that a person who's really at a senior level, who is deserving of the kind of level of role that we're going to be engaged to recruit for, they need that kind of transparency and they need to be able to engage with that in a meaningful way. If you spring it on a person, it's almost certain that they're not going to stay for the long term. But I've had several cases where, like I said, some people love a turnaround, or they love something where they have a chance to really make an impact by straightening things out. I've had multiple cases where a person's come into those situations and I've just watched them do incredible work, be a great part of that team, and they've turned it around. If we fundamentally knew that we were sending someone into an organization that was just on the way down and there was no hope, we wouldn't do that search. I can say that with 100% certainty. That's sort of where I come at it from.
Okay, I like that. All right, now let's talk about candidates. First of all, always take a recruiter call. Like always take a call. No idea what it's for. Always take it. Don't ever say, I love my job, I don't want to talk to you. I think that's fair. Also, don't piss off a recruiter because we have long memory. So let's talk about applying. When you are a candidate and you are applying to a job, how do you stand out from everybody else?
This is going to be a very cliche answer at this exact moment, but if you use AI, maybe edit it a little bit more. There's a lot to be said for actually tailoring the thing that you've written to that organization and not by just repeating what's in the job profile. We read every single application from every single person who applies. Obviously, a lot of our candidates are folks we talk to live before they apply, but for folks who do apply from a listing, it's somewhat remarkable how many people just change the title in their cover letter and maybe change a word or two, but otherwise it's so clear that it's something that they've prepared for 400 other jobs, which, by the way, very compassionate for the person in that situation, because I know that is not a fun place to be. At the same time, if you're not really taking the time to internalize what that job is and why your actual experience does align with it, then I think it's very unlikely that you're going to go forward unless your experience is so perfect and so textbook. So that's one thing I would say. The other thing I would say is, in my case, and this is a small axe to grind to have about arts and culture nonprofits, a lot of people like to convey their love for the arts by telling me about their school play that they were in elementary school. And I kind of have to say to those people, we are actually a business. I love that story. That's lovely. I don't think I would lead with that. It's like, that's why I'm qualified for this job. We are a real business. We are an industry that is incredibly dedicated and incredibly scrappy, but more sophisticated than we are resourced. All that to say, that's my just smaller axe to grind for the arts and culture world. But it's more just about really thinking about the role, because the number of times that we receive a cover letter for a resume that is so clearly for a corporate job or so clearly for another type of industry, then it's just been sort of rinsed and repeated into this process. That is a big one.
My last question for you, and this is now really important, both on the person getting the job and also the nonprofit. We all have a year guarantee. I think pretty much that's standard. So what do you think would be signed within the first 3-6 months that people should be looking out for of somebody maybe not being the right fit or probably not the right hire?
I'd say that it's pretty rare that we invoke that guarantee, but I will say in the times when one is at risk of being in that place, I keep coming back to what we talked about before around surprises and transparency. There's a lot of times where we are going to stay in touch well beyond that year with our placements to make sure that they're both happy, but also getting what they need and that they're not being hit with a lot of surprises from what we sold them on, quote unquote. But if there are a lot of surprises on either side of that equation, either with the placement or with the organization, that's a big red flag. I think that's honestly, like in any case where that's become an issue, it's been because they were not expecting a major piece. I think that one of the things that is an opportunity to look at the full human truth of change is that there is often friction, and there's often a person comes in and they're a stylistic change or an energy change, and they do the job differently than predecessor. That is not categorically a reason to think that they might not work out. I mean, very often people navigate those things well and they move through it and the person acclimates, the team adapts to them and all those kinds of things. To me, is not always a red flag. I do want to get involved to make sure that that person feels supported on both sides, that the person who hired them feels supported as well. But I don't see that as a red flag so much as a surprise of, I had no idea that this financial situation was as it is. And sometimes that's brand new information, or there are things that have changed or happened very recently that can be destabilizing. And so I think that's probably the thing that comes to mind first and foremost. There are also just, on very rare occasions, and I hear about this more than I experience it, but the things that get in the way are largely around things like relocation. Like a person has moved to a place and there's something about that relocation that they weren't expecting. So that doesn't make us at all nervous about people relocating. It just makes us more diligent in terms of how we talk about what's important to that person, how we make sure that they get the information during that search process. It's going to make them as comfortable as possible with making that relocation. My main point is just that there are a lot of things that can make somebody rethink that are not something you can control for in a process.
Cool. Okay. Before I end the show, the question for you is like, did I at least get a C at this interview?
I mean, we're not done yet, but I'd give you a solid B minus. Only kidding. Only kidding. It's only pass fail, and you've passed. Flying colors.
It is actually funny. I will tell you a true story is that my last class when I was at UCLA, before I was going to graduate, I could have gone pass fail, and I chose not to because I'm an idiot, and I did not pass. So I had to take up another class in the summer, and in that class was an art history class, and she failed me because I aced all the exams, but I never showed up. And then finally, I took my last class and I got an A. That is my pass-fail B minus story of my college. Unbelievable.
And what were we saying about it being a numbers game? You just keep trying.
Well, I hope when anybody who listens, whether you're a nonprofit, you're looking for a job, you're a board member, whatever it is, that like this did help you. The nonprofit industry is a great industry. I know we've been vilified a lot out there, but I do think that there's nobody else that does good work like we do. And if you're looking, don't give up. If you're looking for a good employee, don't give up. And Tom, where can people find you and why should they hire you over us?
I saved my pitch against you for private, but I wholly endorse what you were saying about the fact that the nonprofit sector is much vilified these days. We often talk about ourselves in terms of what we are not, but what we are is an impact sector, and the impact is needed more than ever. So I really hope more people can continue to pursue these roles for which we are lucky enough to be searching. But in terms of my firm, you can find us at tocartspartners.com or on Instagram, LinkedIn, also Facebook, although I'm off Facebook right now, but my company's not. And so you can find us TOC Arts Partners, and you can also sign up on our website for alerts whenever we launch searches. We do not spam you with constant emails, so you'll only get emails from us every week or two. And my pitch against Matt and his colleagues would be
careful.
I think would just be, we're in New York and you're in LA. And I don't think anything else really needs to be said. I'm in New York. I have team members in LA, so we'll pretend that they can't hear this.
Just so everybody knows who's listening, Tom's launching 6 searches. So go to his site if you are looking for a role. Go to his site, and honestly, go to all of our sites and check out all the recruiters out there. Get to know us because obviously we have different jobs and we should know you. So if you are ever interested, like sign up, look at our list. If you see anything, always feel free to reach out to our teams. It's better we know you, better for you. So
agreed. Here.
All right, my friend Tom, thank you so much. I've had enough of booze on my end. You've had coffee, so thanks for making my afternoon look a lot better.
Indeed. Same here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. With us, as always, is Ashley Watterson, our producer. Hey, Ashley.
Hey, Matt.
So what'd you think of my episode with Tom?
I loved this episode. I just thought it was such a great melding of the minds of the two of you who are just at the top of your field. You're competitors, but not really. It's clear that you both have great respect for each other, and you just also have very diverse perspectives on what's going on. And so I thought the advice you were able to give to people tuning in was outstanding.
Well, thank you very much. This is our first episode of season 6, and you and I are no longer doing our intros to each episode, which makes me sad because even if nobody else likes them, I really think we're hilarious. And it bums me out that we're not doing that and we're trying something new.
Right? We had to listen to the professionals out there who were like, oh, maybe you two shouldn't spend 10 minutes talking about why you like stuffing on Thanksgiving. And maybe that's not why people are tuning in. Yeah, that totally bums me out too.
It does. But also now, if any of you really enjoy listening to me and Ashley, this is the time. The outro. This is the time.
Exactly. So most people have probably tuned out by now, except for my mom. But yeah, no, this is our time to shine.
So what are you most excited about season 6 now that we're going in strong?
What I think is going to be really exciting is that we're going to have a lot more content because we're going to do an amalgamation of continuing with our interview format, like the interview you had today with Tom, but also we're going to be doing some solo episodes with you. They'll be shorter episodes, but they're you just giving your advice because as you and Tom talked about, everything right now is moving at the speed of light in your industry. And nobody knows which way is up and which way is down. Swim towards the bubbles. Isn't that what they say if you're underwater? But I think this gives you an opportunity to just, when something occurs to you, hey, this is something I really want people to know about and hear my thoughts on. So I'm excited for that.
I think it's going to be really good. I think it's going to be a good season. And next episode that's coming out is actually, to me, really cool because I'm interviewing my friend Liz Lynn, who's the head of the LA Fire Foundation, to talk about some updates on the fires that happened in LA and maybe some other things that we can do to plan for the future.
I love that too. I think that people are very concerned, very tuned in, very sympathetic and responsive in the early weeks after a disaster. And I think we tend to forget that for the people who are most directly impacted, this is an ongoing struggle. And so I'm so glad that you are giving Liz the space to remind our listeners, hey, this is all that has already happened in response to the fires, and here's what's continuing to happen.
So, Ashley, as we let our listener go, any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
Really, what I want people to know is I was just in Las Vegas with my husband. It's our first getaway from our son in ever. And what we've decided is Vegas is a once every 3 years place. That's my personal opinion, personal take. I don't know about the people who can do it every other month. That's just next level. I just can't. We're new on Vegas, Matt.
I think that's fair. I have a real gambling problem. I really do, which is also why I like cruising because of the casinos. And by the way, Ashley, this is news to me. If you are a crazy gambler on a cruise, they give you free cruises all the time, which I had no idea.
I can't imagine why. Why would they want somebody with a gambling addiction to get on their cruises and blow their entire life savings?
That sounds great to me. As you know, it's the all-you-can-eat food. That buffet makes me happy. It's a win-win is all I got to say about that. But yes, Vegas once every few years. Totally fair.
In our next conversation, we'll talk about how often we think a cruise, because clearly you and I would differ on that as well. Okay, now for real, the other thing I do want to leave people with is a big thank you for listening to our show. And if you found today's conversation valuable, be sure to subscribe and share it with those friends of yours out there that also care about the nonprofit space. And for more on our episode, or to learn more about Envision Consulting and how we support organizations like yours, visit envisionnonprofit.com or connect with us on socials. Cheers.